All right, let's dive into a really fascinating column by Shankar IR. It breaks down the super intricate strategy behind the Trump administration's tariff policy and a huge Supreme Court case that's putting it all to the test. So Shankar IR kicks off his column with this classic line, and honestly, it just perfectly frames this entire story. See, this isn't really just about a court case. It's about a strategic game where one side feels like it's already figured out how to win, no matter what the final score is. And get this, people are literally putting money on it. If you look at the data from Polymarket, the odds are really stacked against the administration. You've got 77% of bettors saying they're going to lose. And that is exactly what makes IR's whole "the House never loses" theme so darn interesting. Okay, so let's get into the legal weeds here. This whole thing is coming to a head in a major Supreme Court showdown, and we're expecting a decision around January 14th.
So here are the players. On one side, you've got this group of petitioners. We're talking an educational toy maker, a bunch of small businesses, and even 12 state governments. And on the other side, the Trump administration. And the question it all boils down to is this: does this law called IEEPA actually give a president the power to slap these kinds of huge tariffs on everyone?
Right, so this law, IEEPA, is from 1977. It's meant to give the president power to regulate or even prohibit imports when there's a national emergency. But here's the kicker, and this is a point Shankar IR's column really drives home. In the almost 50 years this law has been on the books, no president has ever used it to justify imposing broad, worldwide tariffs, ever.
And this just lays out the two sides of the argument perfectly. The White House is basically saying, hey, the power to regulate obviously includes imposing tariffs. But the importers are pushing back, saying, whoa, not so fast. IEEPA is for targeted sanctions, not for massive duties. And they argue that, fundamentally, the Constitution gives the power to levy tariffs to Congress, not the president.
Now, up until this point, the lower courts have actually sided with the importers, and they've brought up something called the Major Questions Doctrine. The key thing to understand here is that this doctrine basically says that for an issue this huge, something with massive economic and political consequences, Congress has to grant that power explicitly, in writing. It can't just be vaguely implied.
So, given all the legal arguments and those betting odds we saw, what could actually happen here? Let's walk through the possible outcomes when the court finally rules.
The absolute best-case scenario for the administration is a total clean win, a jackpot. The Supreme Court could just come out and say, yep, the president absolutely has this power under IEEPA. But like we saw from those betting markets, almost nobody thinks that's going to happen.
On the flip side, the worst-case scenario would be a complete and total loss. If the tariffs get struck down entirely, it could set off what IR calls a refund crisis. And we're not talking about small change here. We're talking about more than $150 billion that might have to be paid back.
So this brings us to what IR's analysis suggests is the most likely outcome. He thinks the court is probably going to look for an off-ramp, some kind of nuanced solution that avoids a big, direct constitutional fight, rather than just declaring a simple winner and loser.
So what do these off-ramps even look like? Well, one is a legal move called remand without vacatur. It basically means the court says, you used the wrong reason, but lets the policy continue while the administration fixes the paperwork. Or they could just punt the whole issue over to Congress for approval. They could even add a sunset clause saying the tariffs are okay for now, but they can't be permanent. And this right here is where Shankar IR's column gets to the real heart of the matter. Because even if the court takes one of these off-ramps, the administration already has a backup strategy ready to go. They're calling it the Game 2 plan.
I mean, this quote from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent really says it all. There's this supreme confidence that no matter what the court rules, they have other tools ready to keep that tariff revenue coming in. It just shows you this backup plan isn't some afterthought. It's absolutely central to the whole strategy.
So what's in this parade of options? Well, it's a whole toolkit of other trade laws they can pull from. For example, Section 122 could allow for an immediate 15% tariff on everything. Section 232 lets them target specific sectors like steel and autos by calling them national security threats. And then you've got Sections 301 and 338, which let them go after specific countries for what they call unfair trade practices.
And here is the really crucial part, the preparation. According to IR's column, these are not just some ideas they're brainstorming. The investigations needed to pull the trigger on these other sections are already pre-baked, all queued up and ready to launch the second the Supreme Court hands down its decision. It is a highly coordinated plan.
So what does this all mean in the end? How does this backup plan, this Game 2, bring us all the way back to Yayer's original theme about the House never losing?
Well, Ayer's column points to this fantastic quote from Dwight Eisenhower. The whole point isn't whether Plan A, the court case, actually works out. The point is the planning itself. It's about having a solid Plan B and a Plan C and a Plan D to make sure your main goal is achieved no matter what.
And that's really the key takeaway from Ayer's entire analysis. Sure, winning the Supreme Court case would be great. That's the jackpot. But the real strategic goal is much simpler. Just make sure the tariff policy itself survives, one way or another. The legal fight is just one battle in a much, much larger war.
And so that leaves us with the question that's right at the heart of Ayer's column. If you've built a plan where even a loss in court doesn't actually stop your core policy, well then, what does winning even mean anymore?